Hey guys, welcome back. It is time for another reaction video. Today we'll be checking out 9 reasons why Texas is different from the rest of the South. I'm really interested to see this one, especially since I live in Texas. I'm in Houston myself. And what is typically dubbed as the South in the U.S. can often be confusing to people who are not from the U.S. and sometimes even confusing to those of us who live here. So I'm curious to see what 9 different reasons he says that it's different from the rest of the South. If you want to help support my channel, you can do so by clicking that subscribe button. And you can also pick up merch from the melvinshop.com. It is my own merch shop. You can get shirts like the one I'm wearing right now, which is one of my Texas shirts. I've got a lot of Texas shirts that you can check out, and just an assortment of all kinds of different merchandise. So if you want to help support me and my endeavors here on YouTube, you can do so by picking up some merch. Let's get into the video.
Texas isn't the South. Texas isn't the West. Texas isn't Southwest. Texas is Texas.
I was literally just about to say Texas is Texas right when he got to that part. That's hilarious. It is though, because we're very much dead center.
Long debated and often discussed, Big Texas and its place in America's regions is always a source of contention. The U.S. Census Bureau has designated Texas as a part of the southern region of the country. But oftentimes if you ask someone from Texas if they're southern or not, they'll tell you, I'm not southern, I'm Texan. Or if you ask Americans from other parts of the country, you'll get a million different answers and reasons for why it is or it isn't. So what makes Texas different from other southern states? Well, in this video, I'm going to explain 9 reasons why.
All right.
Go ahead and hit the like button, subscribe if you love this type of content, and let's talk about Texas.
If you want to subscribe to him, I will have a link to his video in the description.
The first and most obvious reason is the geography and sheer size of Texas. If you look at the other southern states, they're kind of in the middle as far as land area of U.S. states. Larger than northeastern states, but smaller than western states. But Texas is different. It is not only larger than every other southern state, putting it more in line with the western states, but is also the second largest state in the entire country. At almost 269,000 square miles, it leapfrogs all of the western continental states and is only dwarfed by the gigantic state of Alaska. Texas is so large that it's bigger than the next 4 largest southern states combined.
Wow.
If Texas were its own country, it would be the 39th largest country in the world. To give you another idea of how large Texas is, on the U.S. interstate highway system, the exits are usually numbered by miles from west to east and from south to north. Texas is the only state in the union where you'll see exit numbers that reach over 600. When you enter the state along I-20, you will see exit 635 for Wascom. And along I-10, there will be exit 878 for Orange. Yeah.
I know these exit numbers because I've traveled all the way west coast and east coast on I-10. I've gone all the way to Florida on I-10, and I've gone all the way to California on I-10.
Yes, that means that you have to drive 878 miles before you're out of Texas to reach the next state, which is New Mexico. In fact, El Paso, Texas is closer to San Diego, California, than it is to Houston, Texas.
Wow. El Paso is closer to San Diego than Houston.
Is closer to San Diego, California, than it is to Houston, Texas. Up next is the landscape. The majority of the South consists of either coastal plains, beaches, mountains, or Piedmont areas. The Atlantic coastal states have low-lying areas adjacent to the Atlantic Ocean that eventually give rise to the Piedmont and the Appalachian Mountains, while the Gulf states are characterized by low-lying plains along the coast that give way to hilly terrain as you head north. The other southern states are very green, as you'll find abundant amounts of grass and forest all throughout the region, along with rivers and their associated surrounding valleys. While Texas is different. One can indeed find some similarities to other southern states in parts of Texas, but there are some distinct features that are Texas only when it comes to the South. First, let's talk about the beaches. Unlike most other southern states with a coastline, Texas is severely lacking in this area. Houston's beach city of Galveston simply does not compare to the East Coast or other Gulf beaches. Owing its proximity to the western U.S. and by its larger size, the general line where the greener eastern U.S. gives way to the browner west slices right through Texas.
Okay.
As a result, you can find plateaus, desert valleys, and desert-style grasslands unlike anything that can be found in other parts of the South. These mountains in Texas look nothing like the Appalachians to the east. To the north, one can find large escarpments, where the Great Plains meet the coastal plains, rather than Piedmont like in other states. And also great prairies that would almost make you think you were in Kansas if you didn't know any better. No other state contains such diversity of landscape quite like Texas does. The next reason Texas is different is due to its demographics. In most of the South, the demographics are, for the most part, black and white Americans with a splash of others here and there. The Carolinas, Virginia, Tennessee, the Deep South, especially, are all quite similar with this breakdown.
I'm going to take a wild guess that Texas leans very heavily Hispanic.
But when it comes to Texas, things look quite different. In Texas, no one group makes up a majority of the population at 51% or higher. But the thing of note is that the largest group is those of Hispanic descent at just over.
Doesn't surprise me whatsoever because we're closest to the border. So it's kind of natural that a lot of people who first come to the U.S. might come across at Texas border possibly, and then end up staying here. I'm Hispanic myself. My dad's from Cuba. But yeah, it's just a very, I'm not sure if it has to do specifically with the border or if there's more to it, but I know that we have a lot of diversity here, but we also have very heavy population Hispanic, especially San Antonio. I think out of all the regions of the 4 major cities in Texas, I think San Antonio has the largest Hispanic population.
40%, they have overtaken non-Hispanic whites as the largest demographic in the state. In third place is Black Americans at around 13%, followed by Asians at 6%. Texas also contains the only large metro in the United States that has a population that is majority Hispanic, as San Antonio is the 24th largest in the country, and Hispanic Americans are 54.3% of the population.
I guess that one right. Yeah.
You can see this influence all over the state, as it's not uncommon to hear Spanish being spoken at any given time in any given place. This can also be somewhat regional as well, as the areas close to the Mexican border tend to have higher Hispanic populations. The Rio Grande Valley and El Paso areas are of particular note in that the Hispanic populations in these areas can reach 80 to 90%, while over in Houston, things are split mostly evenly between the 3 groups. And the Dallas-Fort Worth area is slightly different with a 42-16-29% split among those groups. This map of the counties gives you a good idea of the demographic distribution across the state, with Hispanics dominating the southern and southwestern parts of the state, and non-Hispanic whites making up the rest. In most other southern states, aside from Florida, the demographic makeup is usually around 60% white, 20 to 30% black, and 10% or less Hispanic.
I wonder how that is in Florida though too, because I know that Florida is also a very heavy Spanish population, especially the further south you go, the more Hispanic you get.
And those demographics play a role in the next reason Texas is different, and that is some of the food.
Absolutely.
First is the barbecue. The Carolinas and Tennessee are the face of what is Southern barbecue, but Texas, of course, has its own barbecue. With Southern barbecue from the Carolinas and Memphis, pork is the primary meat. It consists of pork shoulders and baby back ribs. It is served pulled, shredded, or chopped, but sometimes sliced. It may also be rubbed with a spice mixture before smoking and mocked with a spice and vinegar liquid during smoking. There can be more regional differences between eastern and central North Carolina as well as South Carolina, but that's the general style. While Texas barbecue uses beef as the primary meat and beef briskets and
Texas barbecue is the best barbecue. No question.
Beef ribs are the primary dishes. Texas barbecue is cooked until it is falling off the bone and uses a sweet tomato-based sauce. What you can also find in Texas that isn't found in any other southern state is authentic Tex-Mex food. Well, like the name says, Tex-Mex is a type of Mexican food from Texas. Though it can be considered foreign food, it was in fact born right here in Texas. So one could say that Tex-Mex is American Mexican food. And according to Twisted Taco, this term used to describe American Mexican food was first introduced in Texas. Residents of the state enjoyed their Mexican dishes and began making them at home with the food that they had access to, such as beef and flour. The Mexican restaurants in Texas started adding more ingredients preferred by Texans to accommodate their taste, resulting in what we call today Tex-Mex.
If you ever visit Texas and you can only eat 1 or 2 places while you're here, Tex-Mex and barbecue. That's what you need to do. Tex-Mex, barbecue. If you've got more time, then you should explore a lot more because we have a lot to eat. Especially in Houston, we have a ridiculous amount of restaurants here and diversity, though. The diversity in the types of foods we have here is crazy.
Examples of Tex-Mex food include fajitas, nachos, and any dish that uses beef, black beans, canned vegetables, wheat flour, or yellow cheese. These ingredients are not popular south of the Rio Grande or the Mexican border, and this means that Tex-Mex food is available in numerous places. And as the name states, it is a Texan thing, not a Southern thing. So
Yep.
Texas has Tex-Mex, while the rest of the South has their traditional hearty food that the region is known for. Though in modern times, one can find both types of food in many parts of the country.
And speaking of food, when I'm out here on the road exploring all of America's cities and states, things can get quite expensive. Between food, gas, hotels, and entertainment, the costs start to add up and you start looking for things to cut back on. Well, that's why I'm excited to share that I'm partnering with Mint Mobile for today's video, a premium wireless service for only $15 per month. I can get high-speed data and unlimited talk and text on the nation's largest.
Next, let's
If you guys want to go check out the link for his Mint Mobile thing, go grab it through his video.
talk about the roads in Texas. First, roads, like everything else in Texas, are simply bigger. Bigger stacks, higher flyovers, the world's widest freeway, and some of the
World's widest freeway right here in Houston on I-10 between Post Oak and the Beltway, I believe. 24 or 28 lanes wide. I'm not sure, but yes, the widest freeway.
widest surface boulevards you'll find in America. While around the rest of the South, seeing a large stack interchange might be a big deal, in Texas, it's just the norm. Spaghetti Junction in Atlanta, Texas has like 10 of those.
Yep.
I-95 in Miami would be just another road in Texas. Florida is also quite proud of its I-4 Ultimate project in Orlando. Well, in Texas, such tolled expressways are nothing new. Another thing on the roadways in Texas is the speed limits. In other southern states, you'll see speed limits that typically top out at 70 miles per hour. In Texas, you will not only find
85.
75 miles per hour on major interstates, but some rural two-lane roads as well. It gets even crazier with speeds up to 80 miles per hour in some places, and even 85 miles per hour on the fastest roadway in the country, just outside of Austin. Northern neighbor Oklahoma does have a few 80 miles per hour roadways, but then some would debate its status as a southern state as well. Then aside from that, Texas is also the king of concrete roadways. Concrete roadways are not unique to Texas, as you can occasionally find concrete used on freeways in other southern states. But in Texas, even the surface streets in the cities are paved with concrete.
I thought that was pretty normal. I mean, I know there's asphalt used in some areas too, but I didn't realize that we have concrete more than other states. I also think, now that I know that, part of that might be because of the heat and the temperatures. If we used asphalt here, I don't think it would work too well with our climate. We do use asphalt in some areas, but if we used it for everything, the roads would get demolished because they would essentially just melt and get the weight of the vehicles over time would just destroy them. So yeah, most of our roads are concrete, the majority of them.
One of the first things I noticed in the Dallas-Fort Worth area was how much concrete was used all over the area on regular arterial roads. Definitely a Texas thing, and they are always under construction. Maybe I need to invest in a concrete company. Now on to the cities. Typically, when one thinks of major southern cities or metropolitan areas, the Texas cities don't immediately come to mind. Many regard Atlanta as the unofficial capital of the South, with its cultural dominance and centralized location in the region. Atlanta is a fast-growing metro that is estimated to have 6.31 million people in 2023, making it larger than any other southern metro, until you bring Texas into the picture. Texas has not one, but two metros that dwarf the capital of the South in population and overall development. The Dallas-Fort Worth metro area is the fourth largest in the country, with 8.10 million people in 2023. And the Houston metro area is right behind it with 7.51 million residents.
I find that, so depending on what video I'm watching, sometimes they say Houston's the bigger of the two, and sometimes they say Dallas. But it's usually when they say Dallas-Fort Worth. And to me, if you really want to truly compare the size of the two cities, Fort Worth shouldn't be lumped in, because then if you're going to do that, then Houston should lump in Galveston, for instance, because I think it's equal distance of how far Dallas is to Fort Worth. I could be wrong. You don't see Austin throwing in San Antonio into the mix, or San Marcos into the mix. So it doesn't really make sense to me that Dallas and Fort Worth are kind of lumped together as one. I'm sure if you separated the two, that the population count would decrease significantly. But I've always found that interesting on how they come up with those numbers.
They both are also growing faster than Atlanta, so the gap is only getting wider, with some predicting that they may knock Chicago from its long-held third-place position in the coming decades. But it doesn't stop with the upper-tier cities. The third and fourth largest metros of San Antonio and Austin compete with second-tier southern metros such as Tampa, Charlotte, Orlando, Nashville, and Raleigh-Durham. So while the South has a decent amount of metros to go around, Texas can hold its own.
And if I remember correctly, I think San Antonio is growing at a very rapid pace as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if San Antonio ends up beating out Austin here soon enough.
All contained within one state. It's safe to say that Atlanta's influence over the South ends at the Texas state line. Capital of the South, except Texas.
Yeah.
Now the next thing that's different about Texas is the history. While most other southern states went from colonies of foreign countries or U.S. territories prior to becoming a state, Texas actually had a period of being its own country. After the Mexican War of Independence against Spain, Texas was included in the newly independent United Mexican States of America. In an effort to populate the area, the Mexican government encouraged immigration from other countries, as well as migration from other parts of Mexico. So many Americans came to the territory to the point that in 1830, the Mexican government banned immigration from the United States.
Oh, wow.
Though significant illegal immigration from the United States continued to occur. By 1836, Texas delegates had decided to break away from Mexico and declared the independence of a new Republic of Texas. The U.S. recognized the Republic of Texas in 1837, though clashes with Mexico continued through the 1840s. On the other end, Mexico refused to acknowledge its independence, nor did it entertain U.S. offers to buy Texas. It had its own constitution, its own presidents, and even had formal relations with some foreign countries. However, in 1845, the U.S. annexed Texas and admitted it to the Union, thus ending the 9-year-old Republic of Texas and angering Mexico, giving way to the Mexican-American War, and the rest is history. No other southern state came into the Union after being its own country. Next on the list is
Texas could be its own country today if it wanted to. It really could. I've watched a number of videos that talk about how much of an impact Texas has on the rest of the U.S. and not suggesting that we do break off, but if it were to happen, Texas could survive on its own as its own country.
Is the split loyalties as far as what region Texas does belong to. Depending on where you are in Texas, it could be considered as part of the West, the South, the Great Plains, northern Mexico, western Oklahoma, and New California. The southern part of Texas roughly follows Interstate 45.
New California. That's hilarious. I wonder what that area is actually called, because it's definitely not New California.
Between Houston and Dallas. With Houston no doubt being considered southern, while things get a little interesting up in the DFW. East of Dallas, most will say, is southern, while Dallas and points north can be claimed as the Great Plains. The area around the Oklahoma state line is already referred to as Texoma, and Dallas has already set its sights on this region as future territory for unlimited DFW sprawl. While still in the DFW on the western side, the city of Fort Worth is where many say the West begins. West Texas then stretches all the way down the I-20 corridor through the oil fields of Odessa and Midland, and on to El Paso. Now it can be debated whether Fort Worth or El Paso is the center of West Texas, but I'd go with Fort Worth. Over the Panhandle, you'll find West Oklahoma, which is centered around Amarillo. I've driven through this area on both I-40 and US 87, and it definitely looks more like Oklahoma than the rest of Texas. This area here, to include Corpus Christi, San Antonio, and the Rio Grande Valley, is northern Mexico. Out here, the population is significantly more Hispanic than other parts of the state, and San Antonio is no doubt the most dominant city here. And finally, there is the capital region around Austin. It is said that the capital city of Austin is the least Texas city in Texas. It is also the most popular area of the state for relocated folks from California. In Austin, you will find an incredibly fast.
That's probably because of the tech sector. You know, Tesla's there, Google, Facebook. Elon's moving X over to there. Apple. A lot of companies that were very heavily based in California that are either moving to Texas or opening up additional offices in Texas, and it's all in Austin. So I think that's a big part of why so many people from California are relocating to Austin. Not to mention that Austin has the most similar appeal that California has, minus the beaches, but it has the lakes and the mountains and things like that. Whereas most of the rest of us, you know, like San Antonio, Houston, and Dallas are more flat.
Fast-growing skyline, the flagship University of Texas at Austin, more walkability than other Texas cities, but also the worst traffic of all the Texas cities, all in one place. While in the rest of the South, for the most part, the states can more easily be fit into a single region, though many will have something to say about South Florida and the DMV's status as southern metros. And the last thing I want to talk about is Texas state pride. Now, this is not to say that people in other states don't show pride in them, but Texas is on a different level. The Lone Star has long been a symbol of Texas pride since before it was even a state, and you can find it used absolutely everywhere when traveling around.
I could definitely see this because a lot of the times when traveling, I'm guilty of it, and I'm sure other people are that are from Texas, is when if you're in another country, people might say, where are you from? I often will say Texas before I say the U.S. because I feel like it's implied that if you say Texas, they already know the U.S., where other states, aside from maybe California, New York, and Florida, you could probably do the same thing with any of those three states, California, New York, and Florida. You could say you're from there, and people would know that that means you're from the U.S. But if you say that with other states in the U.S., it's not going to be as immediate that they're going to associate those states to the U.S. They might have an idea that those states are in the U.S., but California, Texas, Florida, and New York, everybody knows those worldwide. I think it's pretty well known. I could be wrong. Maybe if you're watching from another country, you tell me below in the comments. But yeah, I say Texas before the U.S.
It's on billboards. It is on cars. It is used for freeway art. I've even seen people with it on their homes. And of course, America's team
Dallas
over there in
Cowboys.
Dallas uses it for their logo. Though the last time that team won anything, YouTube nor Google even existed yet. You'll also see the Texas state flag everywhere. It's just a standard practice at this point. You'll see the star or the flag in all Texas cities, both large and small. And the other thing you'll see is the state of Texas silhouette.
Since he's talking so much about Texas, and I mentioned this shirt a moment ago, let me see. I don't know if I have one of my other Texas shirts over here or not. Actually, I think I don't. Never mind. I do have one with the shape of Texas on it, and I also have one with the Texas star on it. So if you want some Texas merch, go check out my shop, themelvinshop.com.
When I stopped at the rest area entering the state on I-20, they had a Texas state-shaped monument outside.
Yes.
You'll see the state plastered all over several things and places just as much, if not more, than the Lone Star itself. Even those not from Texas recognize the shape of Texas when they see it. The Texas state shape might be more popular and recognizable than that of any other U.S. state.
I think our flag is probably one of the most recognizable state flags as well. I can't really even tell you what any flags look like from any of the other states. I know a lot of them are blue and have kind of like a crest of stars usually. I think easily like 15 to 20 of the states have something similar to that. It's blue with some stars. but I couldn't really specifically tell you what another state flag looks like. And I think most people, even those who are not from Texas, know a Texas flag. Don't mess with Texas.
And then there is the Don't Mess with Texas slogan.
Yep.
Originally coined by the Texas DOT as a campaign to reduce litter, it later became a part of Texas identity and a source of Texas pride. You can find this slogan all over the state, on shirts, on cups, and various other souvenirs.
Yep.
And in public schools, the children in Texas pledge their allegiance not only to the United States flag, but also their allegiance to the Texas state flag.
Yep.
Other southern states just don't have the same level of state pride that you will find in Texas.
And there we have it, folks, the differences between Texas and the rest of the South. What region do you think Texas is in? Is the U.S. Census Bureau correct to include it in the South? Or should it be included in the West instead? Or do we need a new official region called the Southwest? Or do you believe that Texas is Texas? Also, do you know
I'm going to agree with you that Texas is Texas.
any other ways that Texas is different from the rest of the South? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.
Yeah, let me know that in the comments too. Are there some things he didn't mention in the video that make Texas different from other southern region states? I'm sure there's countless other ones. I'm not thinking of anything at the moment. What will happen is, what usually happens is, some of the thoughts will pop into my mind when I'm editing the videos versus while I'm watching them. But I really enjoyed that video. I don't think I've reacted to anything from his channel before, but I'm going to go back and look through some of his other videos and see if I can find some other ones to check out. Yeah, if you guys liked that video, do give it a thumbs up. Go visit his channel as well. Use that link in the description. If you want to help support me, subscribe to my channel or pick up some merch from themelvinshop.com. I know I've said it like several times in this video. My apologies. It's just that I forget to mention it most of the time. And yeah, like, comment, subscribe, share, do all the things, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Later.